Hey everyone, welcome to the weekly Unreal Engine Twitch live stream. Quick note before we get started, Dana, who is normally here, is out with the rest of the team at PAX. Please stop by if you're there to see them in Seattle. They're at booth 7505. All right, now that that's out of the way, today we've got our friends from Allegorithmic, Alexis, Wes, and Jeremy.
Hi.
They're here to be showing off some of their substance tools as well as the integration into UE4. So we've got some cool things in store for you guys. With that, I'll turn it over to Alexis.
Thank you very much, Hans. We are really glad to be here today.
Yeah.
So I am Alexis, VP at Allegorithmic. This is our friend Wes, straight out of Kentucky, who came here at the Epic HQ, and Jeremy, our substance specialist from Los Angeles. So yes, we're going to show a bunch of cool stuff today. So our tools, the substance tool set. Hopefully you're going to like it. And also how the integration inside UE4 is working. We love doing stuff inside UE4, and the plugin is now available from our website, and it's free. And yes, I mean, if you have any questions during the stream, please feel free to ask. We'll be happy to answer.
Totally.
First, to start, we're going to actually provide you with a pretty cool project called Atlantis. And today we wanted to give you a sneak peek of this project. So first of all, we're going to show you a video that we did, and we can talk about it after that.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, good looking stuff.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, we've been working on this demo for a few months now. So it's going to be available soon on the UE4 marketplace. We're still tweaking a bunch of things, but it's going to be all the assets will be available. You will be able to use the substances and mess around with it.
Yeah, we're really excited to bring that out to you guys.
We're also excited about this. We want basically people to understand how the workflow between Substance and UE4 works well, especially within the frame of physically based rendering, because our toolset is really designed from ground up to support the PBR workflow. And every outputs that you have from our tools, you can bring them straightforward into UE4, and it will work perfectly.
Awesome.
I'm basically becoming much more useless now, because the point is to make some cool demos. So Wes here, which is our community manager and also a pretty talented technical artist, will show us a bunch of cool stuff inside our tools. And we will start with a tool that perhaps you don't know yet, which is called Substance Painter, which is our brand new painting application. It's currently in beta. It has been in beta for quite some time. It's very successful. We've got a lot of people using it and helping us improving it. And we wanted to show you some of the cool features that you can have inside Substance Painter. Yes, Wes?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Alex. Okay, so I'm going to run us through some aspects of Substance Painter. And so what you see here is just an asset that we're going to use as we kind of talk through this. And I'm just going to kind of turn off this base layer here. And so what I'm going to show, and also for right now, I'm just going to turn off my post effects. And what I'm going to kind of show in this video is how we can just kind of work through this little texture area right here. And so for this here, you can see that we have our texture sets. I'm actually going to go ahead and just solo this so that we can just concentrate on what we're doing here. And so like Alexis just mentioned, that Substance Painter built from the ground up to work with physically based texturing. And so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just turn off all of these layers here. So we're just going to kind of move all the way down to where we have kind of like this base kind of starting point here. And the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to create a layer, and I want to talk about one of the core strengths of using Substance Painter, which is the ability to paint across multiple channels with full materials. So here I'm just going to just select here one of our paint materials, this titanium. And you can see here, if I just start to kind of just go ahead and paint, you can see that right there I'm actually able to paint with a full material. So I'm just going to hold down Shift, left click, and just kind of move my light around. I can also kind of cycle through my channels here. So if we kind of look at, this is the diffuse or our base color that we're working with. Here's the roughness information. Here's our metallic. And then finally, here's our full composited material. So with this, you can see that right here in our material, these are the channels that we're working with. So base color, rough, and metal. And so what we're doing is we're being able to paint across all these channels, and we're able to create this full material. And it's very important when working with physically based content that we think of these assets as a complete material versus kind of the more traditional way that we used to work through applications like Photoshop, where each channel was just, just a single texture map. So what we're going to do here is,
Wes, perhaps can you elaborate a little bit on the PBR model we're using and what it means exactly?
Yeah, sure thing. So the PBR model that we're using the metal rough workflow. It's based off the Disney principle GGX BRDF, and it's the same BRDF that's used inside of Unreal 4. So as Alexa mentioned at the beginning of the cast, these textures that you export directly out of Substance Painter will go right into the UE4 material and will work seamlessly. So here, let's just go ahead and just undo this layer. And I'm going to go ahead and create a fill layer. And so with this, I'm actually going to flood this whole area here with this titanium. So here we have this titanium. I'm going to come over here to my roughness, and you can see that I can interactively change my roughness here. The environment itself, if I come over here to my viewer settings, and I'm actually going to pull my opacity up. So you can see that we actually have an environment. You can use any IBL. So the renderer is actually using image-based lighting, and you can use any EXR, HDR file that you can bring in, panorama format. So for this, I'm just going to kind of turn the opacity off so we can kind of see what we're doing. So here we are. We've got this titanium metal layer. I'm going to go ahead and create another layer on top of this guy. So we have two fill layers. And with this, I'm going to come over to my paint materials. And in this case, I'm going to drop over here to this kind of plastic glossy preset. I'll just click this, and you can see that it already sets up my channels for me. And I'm using plastic glossy because, plastic is going to put us in that reflectance range or reflectant value for most kind of dielectric materials. So what we're thinking about here, and let's just go ahead and just grab this color. We'll drop this guy down and do kind of like this cool orangish color. And so now we basically have kind of like this painted layer on top of the metal. So here's our metal, and here's our painted layer here. And of course, we can come in and we can start to adjust our roughness. So I'm just going to go ahead and just set a base roughness. Now at this point, what I want to do is I want to start to actually painting some rough information. So I'm going to create a new layer here. And I'm going to come over here to my materials. And in this case, I'm actually going to disable my diffuse or my base color and my metal. And I'm only going to work with rough. And I'm going to kind of pull my rough value up here. And I'm going to go over to just one of our brushes. And I could actually just drop down and just pick one of our preset brushes, such as dirt. And I can actually just start painting right here some rough information. So again, if I go ahead and just cycle through my channels, and we'll get over here to our roughness, you can see that I'm putting this roughness information down. Something else that we can do here is if I were to just jump over into our split 3D, 2D view, Substance Painter will actually allow you to paint in 2D. And our 2D view is actually lit, as you can see here, which is actually very, very useful. And so as I start to kind of paint on these UV shells, one of the things I really want to bring to your attention, and here let me just go ahead and enable my diffuse, and I'm just going to pick like a really just different color here. Let's see. I'll just pick something like black for now, just so you can see this. And as I start to just kind of paint this black down, you can see that what's happening is each UV shell, it's actually seamlessly crossing over the UV shells. So what you get is a really great system here for being able to paint seamlessly across UV shells, which effectively removes the seams. So let's just go ahead and just undo that, and I'm just going to jump back to our roughness. So here I'm just disabling my channel, I'm back into my rough, and if I wanted to, I can do this inside of the 2D view, or what I'm going to do is just jump back over to the 3D view, and I can just start painting. So I can actually just manually paint this roughness in. It's a 3D painter. But one of the things that's very unique about Substance Painter is that we can actually run physics simulations. So here I'm going to come over to my particle brushes, and I'm actually going to go ahead and drop down to this rain simulation. And I'm actually going to pull this tool palette up here. Let's go into this value here.
A few words about the particle simulation. So this is actually the first feature we introduced with Substance Painter when we launched the product a few months ago. This is completely unique. Basically, no other software, as far as I know, can do this kind of stuff. And it has been a pleasure to see what the community has been producing with these particle effects. So Wes will show you a bunch of presets, but I encourage you to try out these particle brushes. They can be really exhilarating.
Yeah, it looks really awesome.
Yeah, so right now I'm just kind of just changing a few settings here. So we start with the preset, and I can actually save these presets if I want to for later use. So now I have just basically this rain selected, so I'm just going to go ahead and just run the simulation. As I'm doing that, I'm actually going to run over here and see my roughness. And what's actually going on here, let me just drop down to my global wind. I think I went a little too crazy with that. Let me just kind of pull these values down here.
Because you're crazy, Wes.
Yeah, let's go negative. And we'll just kind of run this again here. And so as I start to just kind of run this simulation, I can actually start to just paint this value right here onto the scene. And I'm also going to go into my normal factor. I'll pull this down, and we'll paint here again. Let me just increase my brush size here a little bit. And so what I'm going to be doing is using this simulation here to actually adjust and paint some roughness information using this simulation. So I've gone through and I've hand painted a few roughness strokes, and then I've gone and ran in and I've actually applied an actual rain simulation to go ahead and create some more rough streaks across this.
Can you actually zoom in and perhaps change the light so that we can see how the roughness has been changed?
Yes. So as we kind of zoom in here and we start to just move across the surface, you can see where we're starting to get some roughness change here. With that, I'm actually going to run back to just one of my brushes here. So I'll select. I'm just going to kind of rough in this area. A little bit more roughness here. Just real quick. And there we go. We'll just kind of just rough things up here. Okay, so again, we'll just kind of move our light. So at that point, we kind of went through this base layer. So if I just kind of move back over to my layers here, we've had basically our raw metal that's underneath, we've had our painted layer, and now we've had a rough on top of this. And so one of the really interesting aspects about working through Substance Painter, like I said earlier, is that we're actually thinking of this as a real-world object, and we're painting in materials. So what I'm going to do here is now I want to actually kind of chip away this. So if I go ahead and just kind of remove this paint layer, you can see this is our metal that we have underneath. So now you can see that our metal was affected also by that roughness information that we've painted. And so now we kind of want to chip this out. So what we could do for that is we could set ourselves a brush and we could actually go in and hand paint this. But what I'm going to actually show is another important aspect is the usage of a substance effect. So here on this layer, I'm just going to add a black mask, so black being transparent in Substance Painter. And now you can see that we're seeing our raw metal underneath of that. So with this layer selected, I'm actually going to come over here to the top, and I'm actually going to grab a substance effect. So now you can see that we have the layer, a layer mask, and a substance effect. We'll go ahead and just click, and let's just choose one of these guys.
So a substance effect is actually an effect that has been produced inside Substance Designer, which is another tool that we will show very quickly. So these are parametric templates. So it's fully flexible and fully data-driven.
And yeah, I'll show you what that actually means is that as soon as we just add that metal, so now we have something going on here. But what I want to do is just kind of invert this mask. And so just like that, we actually have some edge damage across this. Now, Substance Painter knew that I had a curvature and an ambient occlusion map applied, so it automatically hooks all this up. And so as Alexei was saying, that we're actually running this off a procedural, so I can actually just easily just pull in my grunge amount, I can increase, my wear level and things like this, and I can actually just go in and change these parameters at will here to get this type of effect.
So as you can see, this is extremely quick for the iteration. There is Substance Engine running in the background here. The same Substance Engine that is also integrated as a plugin inside UE4. So the point is that everything you do inside the Substance tools can be then transported inside UE4. We will show you this afterwards.
Okay, so another thing that I'm actually going to do is we'll come back over here to this layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start to think more about in terms of, well, I'll tell you what, let's actually go in and take a look at this and let's add some height information to this. So Substance Painter is completely 100% non-destructive as you work. So you can make changes constantly. You can update your model. You're never really set in stone to what you're working with. And this allows you to be very, very productive. So in this case, we have this layer, which again was a fill layer, and I didn't have any height information. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just enable my height channel. And then I'm going to actually come in and actually just give this just a slight bit of height information to this. And you can see what this does is it takes that area of the painted metal and it just kind of chips that out or gives that effect of this little bump right here that allows us to give that effect of like the actual paint kind of chipping away. So we've gone that far. Let's go ahead and add another layer here. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add another fill layer. Now this layer, I'm actually going to think about adding some rust to this. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to leave my diffuse, height, and rough. I'm going to turn off metal in this actual case. And what I'm going to do is, again, add a substance effect. So we'll come over here to our substance effects. And this time, instead of doing this or adding this effect to a layer mask, we're actually adding it to the color aspect of this layer. So we'll come down to our substance effect. And here I'll actually pick the rust. And in this case, I'm just going to dial up my rust spreading just a bit here so you can see that I'm just interactively just picking a value that I want to work with. And so now that I have this, I'm actually going to come over here to my layer. And now you can see that I have all these blending modes that would be very familiar for those of you who use Photoshop. In this case, I'm actually going to use kind of this darken. So now I'm actually just placed this rust right here on top of everything. And I also want to make sure that I have you can see here that I'm working with diffuse, rough intensities. And so now that I actually have this in place, let's actually take our height intensity. So again, this is kind of like where we want to have some of the paint kind of peeling away. So I'm going to grab my height intensity and pull this up. And now you see that, and if I just kind of move through my channel, so here's the rough, here's our metallic channel, and here's our height. So now you can see that we're actually starting to generate some height information here on this material. And you can really see it kind of underneath here where we're starting to get some bump and things like that. So now we kind of have this in place. We have a rust on top. One of the things that I'm kind of seeing here that I actually want to try to fix is that we have this layer. We're taking this entire layer stack for this texture set. So again, this is what we're looking at, this material here, or this object. We're taking all this layer stack and we're thinking of each layer, and the purpose is it's building up an entire material. And so with that in mind, we want to keep into consideration how we're actually working in PBR. So we have this rust on top. I can see that there's a few issues where I'm actually going to want to make sure that rust is not actually contributing to my metallic. So what we want to do is we want to drop back here to our metallic, and I'm just going to right-click on this, and here I'm going to add a white mask to this. And then what I'm going to do is, let me just make sure I have this set correctly here for this base. And I'm going to go back to this mask. I think in this case, I'm just going to grab one of these brushes. And let me just give myself a little room here with the tool. So if we take a look, we have some information for each brush. Every brush can utilize pen pressure. I'm going to go ahead and just pull my flow all the way up, and I'm going to click this brush advanced or basic to make the advanced rollout appear. And here you can see that I have even more settings here for the alignment. So if I'm painting in true 3D space, am I doing an actual camera projection and so on, I can adjust flow. But in this case, I kind of have really what I wanted to set there. Let's go down to my alpha, and for my hardness, I'm just going to pull the alpha hardness all the way up. So now I kind of have the brush that I want to work with. Let's make sure that we're on the correct layer here. So here's that metal layer. We're actually painting on the mask. And then I'm just going to kind of come into these areas where I'm actually painting the rust is appearing. And I want to make sure that I'm actually taking away metallic value. Because what we have here is we have rust that's over top of this painted metal. And the rust, at this point in time, if I just quickly run through my channels, you can see that some of the rust areas, there's white, pure white here in this metallic channel, and it's actually showing up incorrectly for that reflectance value. So what I'm going to do is just kind of show how easy it is to make sure that you're authoring PBR correct maps here in Substance Painter. So you have a lot of control over this. So you can see what I'm doing here is just going in and just taking the metal value and just dropping that down for areas where the rust is actually showing up. And I won't go through the entire thing and do that, but you get the point of what I'm doing there.
So just for the fun of it, can you just add a oil leak particle effect on top of it?
Oh, yeah, certainly. So here we have this layer. Let's go ahead and just create another layer on top. Again, we're just going to come back here to our particle brushes, and we're going to come right over here to this leaks brush. So now that I have this guy selected, let's just kind of go ahead and set up our channels. So in this case, I do want some diffuse. I want to make sure here that I actually am not using too dark of a value to make sure this is PBR correct. So let's go with something like maybe this value here. I don't want any height. My rough information, I do have that channel enabled, and you can see my rough value that I'm setting, and the metal is turned off, so I'm not having to worry about my metal. And let's go ahead and just kind of maximize our 3D view here just a bit. Make sure I'm on the layer again. Here we go. All right, and so now I can actually just go ahead and just click and just start to use the particle brushes here just to create some leaks across this.
I love that.
Yeah, it's very addicting.
It's so awesome.
This is the point in the demo where they tell me to stop because I just could sit here all day doing this. So yeah, we've gone ahead and we just, I'm just going through and just, going in, painting some leaks across here. And you can see that I can actually just not only click and hold, but I can actually just click and drag and use my brush.
So while Wes is fooling around with the particles, Wes is talking a lot about PBR. You should know that if you're intrigued of what it is, we've got a lot of resource on this topic. So you can go on our YouTube channel and check for PBR sessions, and you're going to have a very comprehensive overview of what it is and how to make it well.
Yeah, here's another way that I use particles a lot is I'll just go ahead and create a white mask. So now that I have my particles, I have a mask. I'm going to have my leaks brush selected. I'm going to come over to grayscale. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm using black because I actually want to paint transparency. And so I'm going to use that same particle effect to just kind of break this effect up. So, it just go in and get a little bit more organic with this here. So you could just, paint these by hand. You could use a stencil, or you could get it done really, really quick and just use particle effects.
Great. So thank you, Wes, for this overview of Substance Painter. This is, I hope you guys liked it. Now we're going to switch to something a bit different, which is Substance Designer. Substance Designer is a tool which is more technical, for sure, but this is where you are creating your substance files, and that's where you can expose parameters that can be sent to UE4 afterwards. So Jeremy, which is another technical artist, will show you some very simple features inside Substance Designer and how to create. So are you going to start with an environment or a character?
Yeah, environment.
Okay, so a very simple tiling environment that was actually used in the demo we showed at the beginning of the session. And he will show you how to expose a bunch of parameters and how Substance Designer is built.
All right, let's get started. So yeah, I'll be using one of the floor tiles we have in that demo we showed earlier. So it's just a simple rock tile with some moss on it and some little puddles of water. And as you can see, it's very different from Substance Painter. Substance Designer is more a compositing tool. So it's much closer to, for people familiar with the UE4 material editor, it's very close to that in the process of creating the texture.
So to make sure there is no misunderstanding, Substance Designer is really to create textures. It's not creating shaders, meaning that we are outputting maps that will feed the shader. So it's completely shader agnostic, and it's really a way to create complex textures, high definition materials in a nonlinear way.
It's more of the tech artist tool,
Yes,
whereas the other
definitely.
one's more of the painter artist tool.
Actually, it's not. I would say it's not that technical.
Okay.
But you definitely need to be technically oriented.
Yeah,
But
got
it's much less complicated than doing a shader.
Yeah. Sure.
But compositing artists, this is, a wording coming from the movie industry,
Yeah.
will be very familiar with this tool.
Cool.
And if you are familiar with material layering in general, which is, I would say, the way to work in PBR, again, you will feel at ease with Substance Designer.
Awesome.
So the way this material has been built, so if we can see the output here, the inputs on the left side and the outputs on the right side. We have the output, we have a diffuse, we have a roughness map here, normal map, and an element occlusion. We don't have any metallic because we don't have any metal in that texture, so we didn't need the metallic output. So as an input, you can see that we have only a few inputs for that texture. We don't have, like the diffuse and all these textures are actually built using Substance. The only inputs we have are a normal map that was baked from a high poly mesh that was sculpted in ZBrush. And we also have a mask, quick hand-painted mask for some of the main features of the texture. And what we use to create that texture is what we call material generators. So these material generators are just very quick ways of creating complex materials within Substance Designer without having to manually paint everything. So for example, here we have that stone generator here. If I click on that stone generator, it actually took as inputs that mask and that normal map and transformed these two maps into a full rock material that we can see here. Then we have a second material, which is just simple moss that's made out of a few noises and a few images blended together. And then we're just blending these two materials together using that third node right here. And then so we're just blending that moss on top of that rock to get our final outputs. That stone generator, as you can see here, has a lot of different options you can play with. And that stone generator was actually built inside of Substance Designer itself. And you can create those base materials and those little generators inside of Substance Designer very easily.
Note that actually the input inside Substance Designer doesn't matter. You can use pre-made content, hand-painted textures, scans, procedural textures, of course, but the input really doesn't matter. What's really important with Substance Designer is the process, the fact that you're creating templates that will create your final outputs. But basically, among our user base, there is no, I would say, best practice on how to use, what to use as inputs. Just use what you want to use, depending on your art style and depending on your own pipeline.
Cool.
So these material generators and these mass generators, that's the same principle as the mass generator that Wes was just showing earlier for creating the dirt marks and the metal chipping. It's the same process. And these generators have a lot of options that you can play with to modify the way they work. For example, on that stone here, we have these puddles caused by some damage on the rock. So that affects our diffuse, that affects the heights and all the channels, and that allows us to have these little water puddle. I can go in there and, for example, change that stone damage control parameter. If I change that and put a lower value, just wait a few seconds, and it's going to update my material with a new value. And now I have much more damage on that texture, and you can see that the water almost took over the whole texture. And I can also just dial that up again, and this time I will have my texture almost fully dry and almost brand new with just a few water on the little creases here, but most of the texture is still intact.
So in the Atlantis demo, we wanted to provide a lot of substances with already exposed parameters. So inside the editor, when we will ship the demo on the marketplace, you will be able to play around with the parameters inside the editor.
Yeah, each texture in the project has like between 20 and 30 parameters you can play with to really modify the look of each and every single texture inside of the project. So actually, how do you bring that texture, which is right now in Substance Designer, to UE4, and how do you bring those parameters to UE4 to be able to play with them in the editor? It's very simple. If I want, for example, to be able to change that puddle, that damage on that rock, what I can do is just expose that value to make sure that UE4 can pick it up, and so we can play around with it in the editor. So I'll just take that value here, that setting, and just click expose here. I'll just give it a new name like rock damage. There we go. And now that value is exposed. So all I have to do is just publish my substance into a compiled format that will be readable by Unreal Engine 4.
So this is actually where the magic happens when it comes also to the download size. When you publish a substance in a substance archive format, it actually optimized the graph and store the process, the description on how the outputs are generated. So the reason why it's so small, you remember in the demo, we said that we go from 2 gigabytes of DXT compressed texture to 50 megabytes, so more than 95% reduction. It's because we are storing the description of the outputs instead of the outputs themselves.
Gotcha.
So
basically, crash. Hopefully no one noticed.
So basically, it's great. Actually, we weren't showing the screen. So when you load the substance, when you launch your game for the first time, it will generate the outputs. But what you downloaded or what you stored was extremely small. It's basically binary code. This is where our plugin is useful because this is our runtime, our plugin, that is rasterizing the images from the code.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So if we wanted to, we could have been going much more hardcore and go 99.99% of reduction. But actually, it's more a trade-off because the reason why it's not completely annihilated in terms of size is because we're also using some images sometimes to drive some effects, because sometimes it makes more sense to use image or to hand paint some stuff. But anyways, in 99% of the cases, if you are building a substance file, it's going to be much smaller than traditional images.
Awesome.
All right, so I just exported that substance as an SBS AR file, and I'll just fire up UE4 to apply that substance into Unreal Engine scene.
So while we are launching Unreal Editor, just a few details on what you can do with the Substance plugin inside UE4. So we talked about size reduction. So obviously, this is something really important for those who want to distribute quickly high-quality content. The other thing which is really important, which is Jeremy will show you, is that you can tweak, modify the textures directly in Engine without have to go into another software. And this is something that even a level designer, the art director can do. There is a technology under the hood, but what is exposed is extremely accessible.
Gotcha. So you don't have to go bug an artist to get a little change you need.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the third aspect that we will also go through is that you can even modify the textures at runtime. And this is a way to make dynamic changes inside your game. For instance, dynamic environments, think climate effect, weathering effect, adding terrain wear at runtime, or also user-generated content. So if you want to let the end user customize some assets, characters, weapons, vehicles, this is also a great way to produce a huge amount of variation without having to alter them or to store them. Awesome. So basically, when the end user changes a parameter, it regenerates a new texture. And all that without using shader. You can still use shader if you want to, of course. Sometimes dynamic changes are making much more sense using a shader, but it's a trade-off. Sometimes it's also much easier to do the change in the texture directly.
Cool.
All right, so I got a project loaded up. So this project is the project that will be shipped on the marketplace very soon, and you'll be able to play with. So it's 100% substances, and actually most of these textures are based off the same material generator I was showing, the rock material generator. Since we have a lot of rock in that scene, most of the textures are based off the same template generator, which allows us to create those textures very, very fast. As soon as we have our data from the mesh, like the image occlusion, a normal map, as soon as we've baked that, creating the textures is extremely fast because we just have to use that template over and over again, tweak some things, and we have a perfect, consistent environment with all these assets. So I'll just load a simple test level to test my newly created texture. So let me bring up the content browser here.
So while Jeremy is bringing the substance file, the plugin for UE4 is available on our website. It's pretty straightforward. You just have to copy-paste the plugin in the project folder, and it will allow the loading of substance files inside UE4.
Cool.
So I got my I got my floor A texture here. My floor A substance on my desktop. Just drag and drop it inside of UE4. I have a dialog that allows me to create an instance if I want to, create a default instance. So that will allow me to create just one substance. You can have a lot of different instances of the same substance with different parameters each time. And I can create a material that will automatically plug all my outputs into a material. So as you can see, when I import, it creates all these different assets. So it created that substance instance factory, which is the actual substance assets. Created an instance of that substance. As I just said, we can have multiple instances with different parameters each time. And then we have all the outputs, which are just textures. And we get the material that's been created for us right here with all these outputs already plugged in for you, so you don't have to do it manually. Of course, these are just textures, so if you want to use them in your own material that's more complex, you can. It's just a default one that's just easy to use. All right, I'll just apply that on my mesh here. As you can see, the resolution is very low. I can just go inside of the substance parameters, and I can just modify the resolution here. So all the substances that you create are resolution independent, which means you can change the resolution at any time in the editor without having to re-import the texture. So I have my texture here, and I have so that rock damage parameter I just exposed now is now available right here in UE4. So I can just dial that down, and it will make my texture change in real time here.
So the pipeline is actually pretty interesting here, because you can have a few people designing really cool substances inside Substance Designer. Then they basically send the files to other artists who will just have access to specific parameters inside the UE4. But as you can see, I mean, there is no coding involved. There's no need to understand how the graph has been built. It's just a simple slider saying less or more moss.
Yeah.
And it's fully interactive. You don't have to wait for like 30 seconds to see the results. So
Right.
it's really, it's a very next-gen way, I would say, to work on assets within the engine.
It's a cool way to toy around and see results immediately, as opposed to waiting for baking or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now imagine that there is a change in art direction at some point in the project.
That
And
never
you say,
happens.
all right, I know it never happened. It's purely hypothetical. You say, all right, all this looks a little bit too clean or too, I don't know, too old, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's redo all the assets and add a little layer, of dust everywhere. With Substance, what you can do is just push a slider. It will propagate a dust layer on all assets who is using it. Okay. So, I mean, if it would happen, I know it never happens, but in the hypothetical it would happen, this can literally save weeks of work if the setup is done consistently.
Cool. That's awesome.
So that was just a simple example from our environment texture. Of course, it can work on anything from environment to props to characters. Especially on characters, it can be interesting to use for customization, especially if you have very large. You can come up with very large shaders for characters if you want to have customization, and you can hit you can be shader bound at some point, and deferring some part of that calculation on the substance instead of being on the shader can really help with the performances of the game. So another scene that we will provide on the marketplace very soon actually shows just a simple example of character customization using blueprints and Substance. So I don't have the scene here. I just have a video. So I'll just talk over the video just to show you. So this is this asset that we created inside of Substance Designer that we imported inside of Unreal Engine 4. And this asset is made of several textures that are fully customizable, again, using the Substance parameters. So for each part of that robot, we got different parameters to change the amount of wear and tear we have on that robot, the way that wear and tear works, like we did on the vehicle earlier. We can change the color of the different painted areas. So lots of things can be changed to really create a different look for that robot. So of course we can change those parameters just in the UE4 interface. Okay, I'm just launching the scene. But what we want to do is also be able to change these parameters from the game itself using, for example, interactive sliders like I'm using right now. And so to do that, we have to use blueprints to drive the generation of the substance.
So you can consider that substance is a new feature inside a blueprint. It's just a node that you bring, and you can use it as a new feature.
As you can see also, for example, every time I bring a new character, the colors are different. So we're just randomizing the colors of that character every time it appears in the game. So there are lots of things that you can do with the substance. So so I'll show you the actual blueprint for creating these changes. So that's the blueprint. We have our substance, and you can see the slider. The blue part, the blue node at the beginning is the slider. So we take the value of that slider using a timeline, and then we just take that value and plug that value into our substance parameter. And that last blue node you can see on the right here, which is called set input float, just allows you to take a substance, name the parameter you want to modify, and modify that parameter whenever you want. So basically, you can plug that node to any game event, anything that's happening in the game. You could have character customization. You could have weapons getting tear and wear as the player moves into the level. You can have changing season and environment, pretty much anything of that sort. And here, that second part of the blueprint is just, as you can see on the left, just randomizing a color, and then inputting that randomized color in the paint color every time I spawn a new character.
So this is a secondary project called Android Helper that we will also launch on the marketplace soon, which will be a good example on how you can use a substance with Blueprint.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of questions about that rolling in the stream, but the demonstration's answering most of them.
Okay,
so
cool.
Great.
Great. All right, so this is pretty much everything we wanted to show you guys regarding substance for UE4. We could talk about it for hours, to be honest. Actually, good job, guys. You talked really quickly. I thought it would take much more time. So
I had to rein myself in there.
So a few words, because there was still a lot of information. We showed Substance Painter, which is really a painting tool for artists that is using the Substance technology under the hood to create parametric effects, particle effects, and things like that. You can export directly the maps from Substance Painter inside Unreal Engine 4, or you can go through Substance Designer to create a Substance file so that you can unleash and leverage the Substance runtime inside Unreal Engine 4.
To the plugin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the pipeline, actually, we don't push for any specific pipeline. Some people only use Substance Painter because they're very used to painting and they want to keep full control on the creative process. Some people only use Substance Designer because they're very, very much at ease with compositing. Some people will use both. They can use Substance Painter to create super masks, particle masks, and then bring the mask inside Substance Designer as a node. Some people will do everything in Substance Designer and do the finishing inside Substance Painter and then export the maps inside UE4. Some people will just automate everything with a script without even going inside the tools. So basically, it's depending on your mindset and what you want to do with the tools. The whole point is that everything is very much streamlined. It's really dedicated to game assets, to PBR, and it works actually on most platforms. Right now, for UE4, it's only PC and Mac. We will soon release PS4, Xbox One, and mobile as well. It will come down the road. And we are currently working also on really unifying the whole pipeline so that going from designer to painter to UE4 is as seamless as possible. So last word is that all our tools are available on our website, on Steam as well. We've got a pretty active and vibrant community.
And the Steam version works with all this.
Yes,
too,
yes.
so,
I mean, this is the same version.
Yeah,
basically, the reason why we launched it on Steam originally is because we made an early access for Substance Painter. It was a huge success. Thank you again for that. It gave us a lot of feedbacks on what to do, what to implement in the tool to make it right. We still have months and years of development to fulfill all the needs, but it's already pretty robust and used by thousands of people. I invite you basically to see what has been done by the community. We made a contest a few weeks ago called Battle of the Titans. It was a blast. People have been creating awesome arts, and you can see all this on our gallery on our website. And of course, we also want to put as much content as possible on the UE4 marketplace. So as soon as everything is well packaged, you will be able to play around with this, and we will be more than happy to get your feedbacks. We know that there are still a lot of things to improve. We were talking to the dev team at Epic this morning. They also have a lot of feedbacks. They're super excited, and they also have a lot of feedbacks regarding UI, regarding performance, of course. But we are very committed, and we believe we can make it right. So yes, enjoy Substance, enjoy UE4, and if you have any question, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, hit us up. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap. Thanks a lot, you guys, for coming on and talking to us about everything, all things Substance.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, and thanks everybody on the stream for hanging out with us. We'll have the archive up probably tomorrow, so don't miss us next week. And again, if y'all are at PAX, make sure to stop by. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.